Welcome to CineVideoTech's lens setup. Here you have many options of lenses to choose from to best tell your story. Lenses are the window to the soul. It's the directors and cinematographers' eyes that convey emotion and visual style. Through their choices, it puts the audience in perspectives that they wouldn't have had before. Think of these lenses as personalities. Some are fat, some are not. Some are fast, some are slow. Some are long, as you see, and some do interesting things of putting the camera where they would normally not be. As a cinematographer, there are certain lenses that over the years I tend to gravitate towards. Cooke S4s, optimal zooms, and vintage 20-100 zoom lens. This lens is made by Cooke. It has great characteristics of flares. It's been one of Stanley Kubrick's lens he uses for Barry Lyndon. This series that we have all in 35mm, also we have it for Super 16. Some of the same coatings that we use for this particular lens, which would be a Super 16 lens, 11.5 to 138, has the same characteristics as a 25-250 HR and 35mm version. These are some of the things that I use to go to. Along with the many options of cameras, we have lenses. In this particular case, we have a Cooke S4. This is a prime lens. It flares very nice, and it has a very warm skin tone. It looks very good on people. The Optimo series, they're not as warm, they're more cool, but they blend well between the two of them. This is a 15-40, used for Steadicam and handheld versus its bigger brother, which is a 24-290. This is at wide open at 2.8 at 290, is a focus puller's nightmare, but it's a very beautiful lens. This is 290mm to 24. The option of lenses that you have available to you is chosen by the director and the cinematographer after doing extensive tests. Every lens has a slight difference to it, like personalities. Some of them are warm, some of them are cool, some of them are fast, high-speed lenses, some of them are slowed lenses. Some of them, in this case, would be an 8mm fisheye, all the way up past an 800mm lens. Depending on what the director and the DP are trying to achieve, you pick the right lens for it. At different times, you'll have a dolly in and a dolly out, or you might have a zoom in with a dolly out to create that kind of vertigo effect that we've seen before. The different manufacturers choose their coatings and their style of their lens to flare or not flare and to create something different from one another. Some of them are high-speed lenses, some of them are slow, some of them are very long, and some of them are very short and very wide. We have everything from lenses that are in an 8mm to a 10, all the way up to a 600, 800 and above. Some lenses are zoom lenses, some lenses are prime lenses. Some of them are variable prime lenses. Options like this create more of an abstract idea for the director. You can selectively focus or not focus the scene to have the audience pay attention to just what you want to see. These are called swing and tilts. As cameras progressed, so did lenses. The first mounts for certain cameras was an airy mount. It then progressed to a bayonet mount. As the format of the cameras increased to Super 35, they went to a PL mount, which means positive lock. This became the universal mount that we still use today. To use these vintage lenses, you would use a PL mount adapter. This particular lens is a Cooke Series 3, and this is a 4. You can see how the differences are over time. Over here we have a bayonet mount, regular 16 and regular 35. We then progressed up to PL mount, positive lock. This only happened because as we got more of the frame and wanted to cover for 16:9, we definitely had to have a wider opening on the back of the lenses. Today we have even full frame lenses that are even larger than this. As we went along, the coatings of these lenses, and some of these are vintage, the minerals and the metals that were used for that in the processing is no longer available. So whatever was made then is a certain look, and that's why people decide to go in certain ways like this. The two equivalents of this being a classic Cooke zoom versus the 16 version, both of them match almost identical. In this case, we have a 25-250 HR, which was a standard of the industry, and its equivalent would be this 16 zoom, which is also an HR. Both in color temperature and in fabricating almost look identical on screen. Over here we have a 600mm lens that back in the day was used like a steering wheel to pull its focus. The operator would pull its focus and not a camera assistant. Later, with modifications and the use of follow focus and zoom controls and standardized matte box and rod systems, we went to a converted 150-600 as you see here. Here is a 17-102 zoom lens, another great lens of the day, Angenieux vintage, that then later on progressed into the Optimo series. As you can see, they're pretty big boys. And then we have again vintage Cooke. This is a 20-100 Cooke zoom, very popular back in the day. And then it's equivalent to Super 16, almost identical, and the range would be 18-100. The only difference between these two is one was for Super 35. Stay tuned. Coming up next, lighting.